Hello people, this is McGarren Flack. Just going to give you a summer tour of the orchard and also vegetable garden. Here we have some potatoes, some melons, corn that flew over with 30-mile-an-hour winds and now it's all bent, but that's totally fine. Cucumbers that are growing here and pineapple guavas that are there, some more melons, asparagus, artichoke. It is currently 103 degrees. It is July 3rd, 2023. So it is pretty darn hot here in St. George. And I come out almost every day and water everything. If I don't, I'm going to show you what happens. So here we have persimmons. This is just a standard American persimmon. But look at the edges there. The edges are a little bit roughed up. That is a problem. Also some discoloring. Now this happens in temperature changes. So we have been about 100 degrees, but then it jumped over 100 degrees and it is blazing hot, and things just that are green tend to wither away. This is a peach tree. It's doing pretty good. Pineapple guava, look right here. See that? Yep, that's some death that's going on. It's just really hot, and the first year I had to shade these. This is, I think, the second year in the ground for all of these, and they tend to be looking pretty good. As soon as they start going brown, I know I need to water them a little bit more. Is a Fuyu persimmon, and I planted it just a couple of days ago. And I didn't change out the soil. I'm doing an experiment, keeping the native soil in there. The tree stayed in its potting soil. I didn't want to ruin the roots very much. So I put sand around it so that it can breathe, and parts of this thing are already starting to die. You can see crispy critter right there. After I did plant it, I cut some of the limbs off so that there's less water and stuff that will go through the leaves. And you can see right here, it's already starting to crisp up too much. I hope it makes it. If it doesn't, that really sucks, because this is actually a really nice tree. But next to it, this has been in the ground for a couple of years, and look at the size of these leaves. This is a persimmon. It's freaking huge. It's Seijo persimmon, and the leaves tend to cup up or curl just a little bit more when the heat starts to increase. But I still come out and I do a light watering, and I do 2 deep waterings each week. This is my grafted persimmon. This is the coffee cake persimmon, the graft that came, and look at how much growth is coming off of that thing. Man, looks so good. Marionberry right here. I am not digging marionberry. I could probably get rid of it, but it seems to be working out pretty good, growing fine here. This is a chocolate persimmon. Look at the growth on this graft. This is already about 4 feet tall, and I grafted it just a couple months ago. This is part of that same tree, but this is the American persimmon that is growing off to the side, and the Asian persimmon that's growing on the top there. This is the supreme pluot. And then I have the flavor king pluot and flavor queen pluot. These 2 I planted last year. This one I planted this year, and things seem to be growing pretty good. Now, because it is so hot out here, this camera is probably gonna start to die on me. So I'm gonna go through this stuff pretty quick. What is this bunch down there? That is comfrey. I love to use comfrey as a chop and drop. I'll just take it and put it around all my trees, and when I do some watering here and there, they tend to grow pretty good. Side note, these are my pawpaws right here, a couple there, and another one, couple there. When temperatures get over 100 degrees, I have to put the covering over them. They just get scorched and die, and they do not look very good when that direct sun is on them. So if we just zoom in a little bit, you can see that it looks tired. The leaves are drooping down a little bit, which happens when you're in 105 degree weather right now. But I do water them almost every day. The sunflowers were supposed to help shade them and provide a slightly more neutral environment We are very arid here. We're in the single digits. I think it's like 7%. But down here in this area, it's got to be double digits because I'm feeling some humidity coming off, especially when I've watered it in the morning, and you can feel it cool down. Now, there's a cherry tree. I've had issues with cherries growing here in St. George, mostly because they're just in the direct sun. But look at that. Crispy critter. This is its first full year in the ground. Its second year. Right here, I did a graft of another tree right here, and you can see the brown right there. That means it's getting a lot of sun. Brown right there, getting too much sun. I probably still need to water even more with this. Cherry trees, I guess, don't really like the heat and the direct sun that's going on in here. And what I'm doing here is I'm just training this limb to stay down. The downside to training the limb this late is that the backside of these leaves are not very well protected like the top of the leaves. And the backside of these leaves will just burn out. And I could possibly get some burn and injury in this limb here. But I'm only training this for a couple weeks, and then I'm gonna let it go and go vertical again so that I can get more fruit. There's a nectarine. It's huge. No fruit on this nectarine. This is its second year in the ground. Pomegranate. I'm always getting pomegranates on this thing. It's great. It's a wonderful, look at the size of that thing. And it's July. I mean, that's July. So good. Man. There's not a lot of them, but they're of good size. This is my plumcot. Look at the size of these little fruits. They're just teeny, size of my thumb. It's not too big. About the size of a marble. But there's hundreds of them. There's so many. It's crazy. Look at the clusters on there. Crazy awesome. And I don't know what variety of plumcot this is. And here we have two more cherries, a Stella and a Bing, right here side by side. Again, training down here. You can see how crispy critter these are getting. And then some of them tend to do pretty good, but I need to water them even more. Once they go brown like this, it won't grow back. New growth will start to come out. And as long as you're seeing the new growth that is green like this, that is a good sign. Now, if you're seeing new growth that is green like this and it's starting to die on the edges, that's not a good sign. You need to water a little bit more, because it's just perspirating all day long. Okay, there's the Moore Park apricot. It's gone. Ate all the fruit. It was really good and juicy. And this is another apricot tree. We've had to protect it from all the birds that are coming in. I'll do a review on these different apricots a little bit later. Here's the flavor grenade, pluot, and here's the jujube. And if we look here, look at these. It's July. They're about half the size. So I'm gonna get maybe 2 crops of these. I've never gotten 2 crops before, but this year I think would be a good year. There are some that are starting to fruit here, still flowering, and wasps tend to pollinate this tree. It's just beautiful. I love it. I think it's a good looking tree, and the fruit is phenomenal. And then I have all of these grapevines on the back here. July, yeah, they're looking pretty darn tired. Here we're almost ready with some of this fruit. It's a fun little cluster. This also is a 4-in-1 tree here. It's grown pretty good. It's about 8 feet tall. Here is a toka plum. Look at these little plums that are growing on it. Aren't they so cute? They're so cute. This is supposed to taste like bubble gum. And I'll do a video on the flavor of all of these various plums. There's a Utah sweet pomegranate, grown pretty good. And here we have an apple with 5 different varieties that are grafted onto it. Here's some apples, a couple of them. I've lost a couple that have fallen down here. I did some summer pruning to maintain the canopy of this tree, but not let too much sunlight in, because it will just destroy this tree if the sun comes in. As you can see, there's a lot of damage that has been done on the tree right there, and that is sun damage, and then borers get into it and eat it right up. This is a new variety. There's the smokehouse graft that I did in the spring. If you look at the graft right there, and here's another graft right there. Nice and successful. This is a green gauge plum. I also just barely planted it a little while ago, and it's gonna need some more water. Woo! Look at it, it's just starting to get roasted out here. Santa Rosa plum, got a couple of plums that are up there that we've had to bag to keep them away from the birds, and over here we have the Asian pear. Look at all these Asian pears. Some of these things are going to be ripe soon, which is kind of early for this Asian pear. This usually ripens around late July, early August. Also have a couple more peach trees here and here. Fruit has not ripened on those yet, but that's all good. Look at that Asian pear. All right, so that is basically the tour in the middle of the heat. 105-degree weather, I think, right now. Let's go up to the top. Pistachio trees, female variety, male variety. They are not growing very much. I don't know if it's just the heat that they kind of stopped growing, but they still look good. Leaves are nice and thick. Probably could use a little bit more water, as always when you're out in the desert and it's arid. There's a muscadine. This is its first year in the ground. It's growing pretty good. Here's the Sugargate muscadine, growing okay. It totally died back. Don't know why, but this is the first year of growth. Last year it almost made it to the wire. These are currants, and this is the third time I've tried having currants here, and it doesn't matter what I do, I can overwater them or underwater them. They just tend to die and go crispy on me. So I don't think I'm going to try currants anymore, but thought I'd give it a try. Here's a Hall muscadine. This one is growing also really good, almost to the wire, will be by the end of the year. Tillamook goumi, sweet scarlet goumi, and another Tillamook goumi. All these guys holding up pretty good. I did have to shade them last year. This year they don't need to be shaded that much. They're able to withstand the heat and the temperature. At least we'll see. Here's another muscadine. This is all 1 year growth. This is the Sweet Jenny, and man, it just grows. So next year I might have fruit from that. Here's the Izu persimmon that I did a video on. Can see all the fruits that are growing on here. Pretty small tree, which is totally fine. It didn't grow that much this year compared to the Raven persimmon. The Raven persimmon does have more brown spots on it, mostly because it keeps beating against the Izu persimmon. So Raven persimmon is much bigger than the Izu persimmon, but I am getting some fruit on the Izu, which is nice. You can see here on the edges, again, it's getting burned a little bit. But an interesting note, I have turned this camera on and off 4 times. No, I should say, this camera has turned itself off 4 times because it is so freaking hot out here. All right, this is the Eversweet pomegranate, and it is 6 feet tall. This is its first full year in the ground, and I have multiple fruit on it already. It's phenomenal. This is a Parfionka pomegranate, and this heat is really starting to make this thing grow. It had a hard time starting this spring. This pawpaw, doing pretty good. More comfrey, got to chop and drop that thing. Here's another pawpaw. This is the Spice Z nectaplum, and the coloring is looking okay. Again, it's 106 degrees now in the heat. This is Indian Freestone peach, and this is a flat wonderful. Here we go with my favorite fruit, pluery, and another pluery. And down here on the bottom, we got some fruit. See that? Look at that fruit. Here's another pluery, And no fruit on this one, but this one has 5 or 6 fruit on it. This variety is the candy heart, and they're getting pretty big. Aprium, no fruit, got 2 frozen this spring. Another aprium. They are doing really good. They're still growing. Look at that growth. And here we go with the jujube. This jujube, the Shaanxi, it has some fruit on it somewhere. A couple of them. Oh yeah, they're big. Right there. Look at that. Also, the grafts that I did are also growing. Mulberry, doing awesome. And here's another mulberry. This is its first year. I planted it last fall, and now it's taller than 6 feet already. Look at the size of these leaves. It's looking awesome. Man alive, I love it. Some bug decided to come in. I think it was grasshoppers, and they just came and ate all the rest of this. So hopefully it will start to leaf out and not be so weirdly angled. This is an elephant heart plum. I just planted it. The 2 that were planted here ended up dying. This is another pluots, first year in the ground, growing really good. And this is the plum parfait pluot. It is drying out a good amount, but still trying to water them. And then muscadines. All these muscadines did not make it. Really sad. Forgot to give an update about the front of the yard. This is a loquat. It has not been in the ground for a year yet. It'll be 1 year this fall, and you can see that there's some good growth into it, but nothing is really dying on it, even in this awesome heat, which I think is interesting. Shift over here. Here's another loquat growing. There is a little bit of death on the side of it there, but the new growth is looking really good. So that's telling me I'm watering it a good amount, but maybe I need to water it more. Underneath this burlap, I have a kumquat that was planted this spring. You can see how yellow it is. This is a variegated kumquat. And the changing, it's just getting fried. So I thought I'd put some shade covering over it to help it out so that it doesn't totally get burned alive. This is the Cara orange. It does not look good. I have no idea what's going on with it. No new growth yet. It is just surviving. And here's another kumquat. Notice how yellow the leaves are. And I put this burlap over it. In the next hour or so, it's going to get into the shade. So it's fine to leave it in the sun a lot, but not too much, I guess. Here's a perfect example. This is also a My Way kumquat, and look at the coloring on this. This is going to hit shade here soon from this large tree that's behind me. So you can see when it does get shade, and they say, yeah, put this in full sun, they mean full sun, but when you get full sun too much, full sun, it does that. So you have 2 choices. You can water more, or you can cover it with shade cloth. I'm just doing it with shade cloth this summer until it starts to cool down, and hopefully it will right itself and it will look more like this kumquat. And then if we go back over here, this is a Cara orange, which is supposed to be able to grow here, but it also was getting burned. No shade except for the morning, but it doesn't need shade in the morning. It needs shade in the afternoon and evening due to the heat. And here's another kumquat. This one is definitely not looking good. I just planted it a couple of days ago, and we'll see if it survives. But look at this. That is not a good sign. Possibly due to overwatering, because this one, unlike the other ones, I left this in the soil that it was potted in. And I'm thinking that it's just gonna rot away the roots because I water these a lot more. This orange tree and the other kumquats are planted just in sand. And I have a video about that and how I planted those. So it'll be interesting to see if it's on the same watering format as the other citrus, if it's going to survive or if it's gonna die. So thought I'd give you all an update on what happens in the middle of summer to some of the fruit trees and what you can do to deal with it. Have a great day.